Stop. Listen. Pay attention. Chosen one. This is not background noise. This is not another fleeting thought you can dismiss. There is a weight in the air around you, and you have carried it longer than you realize. You have felt fatigue pressing into your bones, moments of unexplained pressure, days when decisions felt heavy, and nights when your mind spun without pause. These are not coincidences, and they are not imagined. Chosen one. What I am about to share reaches you intentionally. It is personal. It was meant to intersect with the life you are living, with the choices you have made, even those that seemed small or unnoticed. The moment you brushed past what others call chance, what you did carried an effect that was real, measurable, and silent. You moved through a tension that would have unsettled most people, yet here you are. You felt the strain, and you responded whether consciously or unconsciously. You may have noticed it. The subtle unease in your body, the quiet isolation even in the presence of others, the persistent sense that something needed attention, but you could not name it. You may have questioned yourself, doubted your perception, and wondered if you were overreacting. This is not overreaction. What you have sensed, what you have endured, was purposeful. It was real. And it mattered. There is clarity coming. There is explanation that will land with precision. You do not need to chase it, and you do not need to force understanding. This message has arrived at the precise moment when it is meant to meet you. You may not have been aware, but the circumstances you navigated, each moment of restraint, each instance of silent endurance, were part of a larger alignment. There was timing, structure, and coherence behind what you experienced. And it was designed to intersect with your path, exactly as it did. Right now, chosen one. Your attention matters more than ever. Not to fix, not to prepare for battle, not to anticipate outcomes. Simply to observe and allow the awareness of what you have already navigated to settle. The weight you carried, the fatigue, the quiet confusion, these are not signs of failure. They are markers. They are signals that your life, your choices, and your presence have already enacted change in ways you have yet to recognize. So pause. Breathe. Acknowledge the tension that is pressed against you. This is the beginning of understanding. What you will hear next is not general advice. It is not theory. It is the illumination of what is already true in your life, what you already carried, and what unfolded quietly because of you. Listen carefully, chosen one. Because this is meant for you alone. Your presence here is not an accident. The unfolding is precise, and it begins now. This message is not drifting through a crowd, hoping to land somewhere useful. It is precise. It is directed. It is for you. If you are listening, and something in you has already gone still, that is confirmation, not coincidence. You did not arrive here by curiosity alone. You arrived because what occurred involved you directly, whether you named it that way or not. You are the one this applies to because of how you moved through recent pressure. Not dramatically, not loudly. You stayed functional. You continued showing up. You made ordinary decisions while carrying an extraordinary internal load. Others around you may not have noticed anything unusual. That is part of the point. What happened did not require your conscious effort to be effective. It moved through you automatically. This is where ambiguity ends. The reason this message fits you is not because you struggled harder than others. It is because something in you did not destabilize when it should have. There was an automatic resistance, a quiet steadiness that did not announce itself. You may have thought you were barely holding it together. From the outside and from a deeper view, you were stable. Many people rely on conscious effort to survive pressure. They brace, they push, they compensate. You did something different without realizing it. You regulated. You adapted. You stayed internally aligned even while feeling strain. That difference matters. It is the difference between reacting and remaining coherent. You might not identify as strong. You might describe yourself as tired, worn, or unsure. That description is understandable, but it misses something essential. Strength in this context did not show up as intensity. It showed up as continuity. You did not fragment. You did not abandon yourself. You did not collapse into fear or urgency, even when circumstances invited it. What you experienced was not about conscious belief or intention. It was about structure. Something in you is built to hold pressure without immediate rupture. That does not make you invulnerable. It makes you reliable under strain. There is a difference. Reliability does not draw attention to itself. It simply functions. This is why this message is not for everyone. Many people would hear these words and feel nothing. Others would feel inspired but unsettled. You feel recognized. That recognition is not emotional hype. It is alignment. The events that unfolded recently interacted with your inner stability in a way that revealed it. You did not need to know what you were doing for it to work. You did not need to name it. You only needed to remain present. And you did. That is why you are here now, not to be told who to become, but to understand what has already been operating within you. Now look closely at the sensations you have carried, chosen one. That fatigue, that subtle pressure across your shoulders, the moments when your mind spun endlessly. These are not flaws. They are not evidence of weakness or failure. They are signals. Signals that your life has been in transition, that your internal systems have been engaged in a process larger than any immediate comprehension. The body and mind, when under unseen but precise pressure, produce these responses. They are the language of adjustment, not breakdown. You may have spent years judging yourself for these responses. You may have questioned why you felt drained when others seemed untouched. Why your decisions felt heavy, why nights were longer than the daylight could explain. Remove the judgment. Remove the confusion. These are not mistakes. They are indicators that something was aligning, that unseen forces were intersecting with your path, and that you were not just surviving, you were processing and adapting unconsciously, mastering a level of stability few encounter. Feel the patterns now. The tension in your body is an early warning, a notification, not a failure report. The moments of isolation were not punishment. They were calibration. The spikes of emotional uncertainty were not signs that you were unfit. They were markers of transition. Each moment, each response, each pause was a signpost pointing to what has been unfolding silently because of your presence. Your emotional and physical sensations have a rhythm. They are not chaotic. They are deliberate signals in the body and mind. They mirror the subtle but consistent demands that were placed upon you. They indicate engagement, not error. You were in a system of checks, balances, and responses that operated while you were unaware. You felt the effects. You did not control every moment, yet you responded in alignment with the internal structure that has always been part of you. Chosen one, this is the deeper truth. The discomfort you perceived was never arbitrary. It was the language of transition. Each moment of unease, every quiet internal alarm, was communication measuring, adjusting, and maintaining equilibrium. It was preparing you silently for clarity, for insight, for recognition. The very sensations that felt like obstacles were signals that your internal system was functioning precisely as it was designed. So as you continue to absorb this message, release the need to categorize these sensations as mistakes. They were not interruptions. They were confirmations. They were the evidence that what you endured was not only noticed, it was necessary. It mattered. And it prepared you for the understanding you are receiving now. There is another layer you have not yet seen, chosen one. Behind the fatigue, the tension, the quiet heaviness there was pressure, intentional, unseen, coordinated. It was not random. It was not merely the byproduct of circumstance or stress. Something, or perhaps multiple forces, intersected with your path in a way that tested the alignment you carry without requiring you to even recognize it fully. The timing was precise, the structure deliberate. You remained functional. You continued your days, handled responsibilities, and made decisions with coherence. That is significant. Many would have faltered, overreacted, or become paralyzed under even a fraction of what passed through you. Yet you navigated it steadily with a quiet internal regulation that few can observe and even fewer can reproduce. That steadiness is not accidental. It is a reflection of how your system, mental, emotional, physical, absorbs and distributes pressure without collapse. Do not misunderstand this as dramatization. There is no need for hyperbolic imagery. There is no chaos to embellish. The reality is precise and grounded. You were under influence, but not under control. You were confronted, but not destabilized. You were pressured, but not broken. That distinction matters because it shifts the perspective from fear or heroism to fact and function. Notice the structure recent events converged. They were coordinated in a manner that aligned with patterns in your life that only you could carry. They were intentional tests of stability, of endurance, of coherence. Yet they were subtle enough to pass without alerting your conscious mind fully. That is why they felt like ordinary days, like standard challenges, even while something significant unfolded beneath the surface. Your response was not reactive. You did not need to fight, argue, or compensate. You were functional, present, and responsive where needed, while your internal alignment handled the weight quietly. That is the difference between collapsing under pressure and remaining coherent. You were coherent. Chosen one. Recognize this. The unseen did not destabilize you because your baseline is structured for pressure. Your internal system absorbs measures and adapts automatically. You were confronted, yet you maintained your rhythm, your capacity, and your function. This is the reality of what occurred. Every sensation of strain, every flicker of unease, every moment of fatigue is now contextualized. You did not stumble. You did not falter. You endured silently, consistently, and effectively. And that endurance is the first marker of what has been unfolding because of you. This is the foundation you will need to understand the next layer, the breakdown of the specific pressures that passed through you and how you navigated them without conscious effort. That is where clarity deepens and where the full measure of what occurred becomes undeniable. There were distinct pressures you encountered, chosen one, and each operated in a subtle, measurable way. To understand what happened, it helps to categorize them, not to dramatize, but to see clearly how your stability was maintained. There were 4 primary points: doubt, fear, energy drain, and isolation. A 5th, often overlooked, was delay. Each presented itself naturally in life, without warning, and yet you moved through them with a coherence few possess. First, doubt. Not the occasional questioning of choice, but a persistent undercurrent that whispered uncertainty about your direction, your worth, or your capacity. It appeared in moments you could not define, often triggered by minor interactions, small misunderstandings, or internal comparisons. Doubt is insidious because it masquerades as self-reflection. Yet it can destabilize if allowed to dominate. You did not allow it to dominate. You acknowledged its presence, felt it, and continued moving forward. Your mind weighed it, but your center did not fracture. That is coherence. Next, fear. Not dramatic panic, but the quiet, almost invisible tension that signals risk, possibility, or misalignment. It surfaces as hesitation, as second-guessing, as subtle tightening in your body. Fear has the capacity to immobilize, yet you remained functional. You noticed it, experienced it in real time, and responded with action appropriate to circumstance. You did not avoid it, nor did you indulge it. You maintained presence. That is reliability. Energy drain was the third category. The moments when you felt depleted, when tasks that normally require little effort demanded more. It appeared in waves, often at times when your body and mind were already taxed. Yet you adapted. You regulated your pace, prioritized instinctively, and completed what needed completion. You did not collapse into fatigue, though it was noticeable. That is resilience. Isolation was the fourth point. You felt unseen, unsupported, or disconnected even in the midst of others. It manifests subtly the sense that no one else carries the same weight, that communication fails, or that your perception is unique. Isolation can lead to withdrawal, resentment, or distraction. You maintained your rhythm. You carried on. You observed. Your internal system adjusted to solitude without losing function. That is endurance. Finally, delay. Moments when results, feedback, or recognition lagged behind effort. Delay is a silent pressure. It tests patience, timing, and commitment. Many would internalize frustration, but you did not. You allowed space for process, trusted implicit structure, and maintained forward motion without reactive haste. That is intentional stability. Through each of these categories, chosen one, you maintained internal regulation. You did not need to consciously defend against each point, yet your coherence remained intact. There was no dramatic confrontation because none was necessary. Your structure absorbed, distributed, and processed these pressures silently. It is this internal regulation that has allowed what you experienced, what was unfolding quietly around you, to reach resolution without notice. The combination of these pressures is what would destabilize most. Yet you did not falter. Your presence was uninterrupted, your decisions functional, and your system aligned. This is not luck. It is the natural operation of your internal structure. What you will see next is how reflection confirms what has already occurred, allowing understanding to settle without exaggeration. Now, chosen one. Take a moment to review what has unfolded. Look at the pressures you navigated: doubt, fear, energy drain, isolation, and delay. Not as abstract concepts, but as lived experiences. Observe how you moved through each, not collapsing under their weight, not overcompensating, not reacting excessively. You maintained internal coherence. You stayed present. You operated with clarity, even when the circumstances were subtle yet demanding. As you reflect, remove the notion that any of this was accidental. None of it depended on luck, coincidence, or external validation. The way you endured, processed, and responded was consistent. Your internal alignment operated continuously, without conscious intervention, yet with precision. That is the key observation. What happened around you interacted with your baseline stability, and your baseline responded appropriately. Notice how the energy drain did not paralyze you. Notice how moments of isolation did not lead to despair. Notice how doubt appeared not to destabilize, but to test the internal regulation you were already exercising. The pressures were real. They were coordinated. And you remained functional throughout. Evaluation reveals patterns you may not have recognized at the time. Your mind remained clear in decision-making. Your body responded with appropriate energy. Your emotions registered reality without dominating your actions. There was coherence between your perception, your judgment, and your response. This is not dramatic exaggeration. It is grounded assessment. You may now recognize that what once seemed like minor or confusing tension was actually evidence of your capacity. The internal structure you rely on, sometimes unconsciously, was sufficient to handle more than you realized. That capacity is not inflated by narrative. It is a simple factual observation. You absorbed pressures that would destabilize many, and you did so without spectacle. Reflection also confirms that your endurance was not brittle. You did not simply withstand pressure, you integrated it. You processed doubt without judgment, fear without panic, fatigue without collapse. Each category of pressure passed through your system and was reconciled in real time. That is evaluation. That is recognition. That is confirmation. Chosen one. Allow this understanding to settle. You have already demonstrated stability. You have already navigated complexity without disruption. The reality of your coherence is now visible not as a story of heroism, but as a factual record of what occurred. This realization forms the basis for understanding how uncommon your response truly is. The next step is comparison, not for ego, not for exaltation, but to recognize rarity in context. Consider chosen one. How this stability compares to what most people experience under similar conditions. Many would fracture under a fraction of the pressure you absorbed. A small surge of doubt, a brief wave of fatigue, a moment of isolation. These are enough to destabilize a majority. Yet you remained present, functional, and coherent. That is not a story of superiority. It is a quiet observation of fact. Your response was uncommon. Observe the subtlety. You did not stand out loudly. You did not announce endurance. You did not perform for recognition. You carried on day to day, moment to moment, while maintaining a level of internal regulation that allowed tasks, decisions, and responsibilities to continue uninterrupted. That steadiness is rare, because it requires internal structure more than external validation. Compare your experience to typical human reactions. Anxiety often escalates rapidly. Doubt multiplies into indecision. Energy drains lead to inaction. Isolation can provoke overcompensation or withdrawal. Delay creates impatience and sometimes resentment. Many collapse at one or two of these points. You experienced all 5 categories simultaneously or in succession, and you maintained coherence through every phase. That is the essence of rarity consistency under conditions where others falter. This observation is not intended to inflate your ego. It is intended to provide context. It clarifies why what you experienced was significant, why what you endured mattered, and why the effects that followed were possible. Your steadiness created an internal environment where pressure could pass through without breaking your functionality. You remained calibrated while others around you might have been swept off course by comparable challenges. Rarity in this sense is quiet. It does not need acknowledgement from the world. It exists in alignment, in internal structure, in the ability to respond effectively, while the external system applies invisible tests. You may have noticed that the outcomes of recent events reached resolution silently, without fanfare, without dramatic announcement. That was possible because of your uncommon coherence. Chosen one. Recognize this truth. Your stability was not extraordinary in performance, but uncommon in prevalence. Most would not navigate what you have navigated and remain fully operational. That is the frame for understanding what occurred, and it sets the stage for clarifying your identity, not in exaggeration, but in calm, grounded recognition. Chosen one, now let us clarify something fundamental. What you have demonstrated is not an extraordinary activation of power or a sudden surge of strength. It is your baseline. It is the natural operation of your internal coherence, your preparation, and your maturity. The steadiness you displayed was not conjured in the moment. It was always present, quietly integrated into the structure of who you are. This baseline stability is what allowed you to navigate the pressures of doubt, fear, energy drain, isolation, and delay without disruption. It is not something that needed to be triggered or called upon. It was simply the operating system of your internal structure. You did not need to rally courage or manufacture endurance. You simply continued maintaining alignment with what was required without conscious effort to appear capable. Understand that this coherence reflects preparation as much as innate capacity. Your past experiences, your habitual regulation of thought and emotion, your consistent presence in life's small and large responsibilities. These have all trained your internal system. The readiness you exhibited was the product of accumulated maturity, not sudden activation. It is the quiet evidence of development over time. Chosen one. Inner coherence is not about never experiencing difficulty. It is not about being untouched by strain or fatigue. It is about how your system responds to those challenges, with regulation, with measured awareness, and with functionality intact. That is exactly what you have demonstrated. Your identity is anchored in this reality. You are capable of sustaining alignment even when external or unseen pressures converge. This identity clarification is essential because it frames how you interpret your experiences going forward. You are not exceptional in the sense of performing feats for recognition. You are uncommon in prevalence, reliable in function, and calibrated in your internal structure. That is your baseline. That is your truth. That is what allows events to unfold around you without causing collapse. Recognize it calmly. Accept it quietly. There is no need to exaggerate or embellish. Your stability is sufficient. Your preparation is present. Your alignment is intact. From this foundation, you can approach every situation, every pressure, every unfolding circumstance with the certainty that your internal system is already operating as it should. With this understanding established, chosen one, the next step is integration. How to carry this awareness into daily life in a practical, balanced way, without hypervigilance, without overreaction, and without losing the calm you have already demonstrated. Now, chosen one, take this awareness and integrate it into the flow of your daily life. Begin with rest, not indulgent or excessive, but deliberate moments where your body and mind can recover. Fatigue and subtle tension have been constant companions. Intentional pauses allow your internal system to recalibrate and maintain the coherence you have already demonstrated. Next, practice discernment. Observe your environment, your interactions, and the subtleties of circumstances without judgment or urgency. Your ability to remain coherent under pressure comes in part from noticing patterns and responding proportionally. Allow that skill to guide decisions, not to create hyper-awareness, but to maintain clarity. Boundaries are also crucial. Maintain limits in time, energy, and attention. The pressures you endured were amplified by diffusion, by overstretching into spaces or commitments that did not require your involvement. Protecting your focus ensures your internal coherence is preserved and not taxed unnecessarily. Patience is another perspective to cultivate, not waiting passively, but understanding that processes, outcomes, and adjustments unfold according to their own rhythm. Your endurance through delay has already proven your capacity. Reinforce it with conscious patience, trusting the alignment of events without forcing results. Focus is essential, but balanced. Apply your attention where it matters most, without scattering energy on distractions or low-impact concerns. Your previous navigation of complex pressures demonstrates your innate capacity to prioritize effectively. Maintain that intentionality. Finally, reflect and integrate emotionally. Recognize that the tensions, pressures, and moments of uncertainty you experienced were part of a process in which you participated fully and responded effectively. Each sensation, each challenge, each quiet adjustment has meaning. Observing and acknowledging it strengthens the coherence that has always been your baseline. Chosen one, the goal here is not hypervigilance or constant preparation. It is balance. It is practical awareness grounded in experience. You have demonstrated stability under conditions that would destabilize most. Integrating this understanding into daily life ensures that the awareness you now hold does not become another source of pressure, but a tool for calm, steady, and aligned living. This is your orientation moving forward. Rest, discern boundary, patience, focus, and reflection. With these principles, the internal stability you naturally possess can continue to function as it has effectively, quietly, and without disruption. Chosen one. Now, as this message comes to its close, settle into the understanding of what has occurred. You have navigated unseen pressures, remained coherent under conditions that would overwhelm most, and maintained internal alignment without conscious effort. This is your reality. There is no need for dramatization, exaggeration, or external validation. It is factual, grounded, and personal. Affirm to yourself quietly, I remained steady. I absorbed pressure without collapse. I acted with coherence and presence. Repeat this not as mantra, but as recognition of what is already true. You have demonstrated functionality, alignment, and regulation. These are not aspirational. They are evidential. Another affirmation, I trust my internal structure. I respond effectively to challenges. I am capable of maintaining balance. Allow these words to settle within, reinforcing the awareness that your baseline stability is sufficient. It has carried you through what needed to be carried, and it continues to operate reliably. Take a final deep breath, chosen one. Notice how the tension in your body responds to acknowledgement, not effort. Feel the subtle relief of recognition. The pressures you endured have been seen. The coherence you maintained is confirmed. You do not need to do more to prove it. Simply observe it, integrate it, and allow it to inform your next steps calmly and deliberately. If this message resonates, leave the code 777 in the comments, or simply write I remember. Let this be a marker of your presence and your recognition of what has unfolded. Subscribe for the next transmission, where we will continue to explore clarity, awareness, and integration. But for now, allow this understanding to settle fully. You have carried more than most notice handled, more than most endure, and remained functional while the world and unseen forces passed through. That is your truth, chosen one. Let it rest in you, let it guide quietly, and let it affirm the alignment that has always been your foundation. You are coherent. You are steady. You are recognized.